And do you find yourself at all, I mean, are you staying focused at the task at hand, or do you find yourself ever looking over your shoulder and wondering, when are they going to turn this thing over to Shedeur? Does it ever cross your mind?
No, all I can do is control what I can. And, yeah, that's what you got.
This is as fair of an opportunity that I can give Dillon Gabriel. I'm giving you 2 weeks against a bad defense, a team that just blew up their team, a team that has 1 win on the season. If it's not today, Dillon will never play a game in his football career.
You genuinely won't believe this has actually transpired. Something has gone down behind the scenes that has coaches in a full-blown panic, players in a state of utter confusion, and fans practically losing their collective minds. A move so completely unexpected, so thoroughly chaotic, and so wildly out of pocket that people are still legitimately asking if the entire thing was an elaborate prank. Whatever you once thought could never happen in the world of sports, yeah, it just happened. And the subsequent fallout is already proving to be completely insane. So buckle in, because this twist is about to completely blow your mind.
And Jimmy Haslam said during training camp that you knew that seeing both young quarterbacks at some point this season was important. So just where is Shedeur at as far as his development? And do you have a timetable of when you would take a look at him?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to speculate, Daryl. We're committed to getting better as an offense. Dillon is certainly committing to improving every which way he can, and all the while, all of our players.
If you are finding this content enjoyable, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support is more helpful than you might imagine. It required just a single seemingly harmless question during a press conference to transform the entire Browns facility into a full-blown high-stakes soap opera. One reporter, with an air of casual inquiry, asked whether anyone in the room had even considered the possibility of Shedeur taking over. It was just a tiny, insignificant question, a harmless softball, a warm hug delivered through the sterile medium of a microphone.
He's good, right? He might just be fine. He might be a backup quarterback. He'll never look good.
Well, and nobody's expecting him. Like the expectations with Dillon Gabriel was never really franchise quarterback. But like, if you play poorly today against the Jets, you might effectively play your way into being off this roster in its entirety next year. Like, forget being Colt McCoy and a really smart kid that could be around the organization and that could be a backup for 10 years. Like, all that could go out the window. Like, if you can't look serviceable against this Jets team today, I think.
And Dillon Gabriel's countenance instantly transitioned from his standard, rehearsed press conference mode into an expression that screamed, "I just overheard my boss change the Wi-Fi password and he didn't bother to tell me." The transformation was visceral. The man looked as though someone had physically reached over and unplugged him right in the middle of a critical system update.
You keep on putting Dillon Gabriel out there, and the offense does the same exact thing every single week. Yeah. Nothing changes. Yeah. He has one good quarter a week, and he has 2 good throws a game. Nothing changes. It doesn't. Put Shedeur out there and see what Shedeur does. If anything, like we just talked about Brian Daboll, if Shedeur comes out there and he balls out and he plays lights out, you might not get fired in a couple weeks neither. If you keep on throwing Dillon Gabriel out there, you're going to get fired in a couple weeks.
Of course, this was not just any other week, and this was not just any other loss. This was a soul-crushing loss to the New York Jets. The Jets, a football team that somehow managed to beat Cleveland while barely even cracking a triple-digit total for offensive yardage, a feat that quite frankly should be illegal under the terms of the Geneva Convention.
There was a question. Daryl Ryder yesterday said, "Kevin, what progress have you seen from Dillon Gabriel? What areas have you seen drastic improvement?" Okay, this is an opportunity for your head coach to go ahead and highlight some things about your rookie quarterback that you insist upon shoving down our freaking throats, and tell us what you see from Dillon Gabriel that you take away as a positive. Because we don't see it, obviously. That's why Daryl's asking this question. We don't see it. We don't see the improvement. We don't see the positives for Dillon Gabriel. So what are they? And here's how Kevin answered, or rather did not answer that question. says,
They put up 169 total yards and still walked out like they had just invented football. Meanwhile, Cleveland had more yards.
They managed to put up a paltry 169 total yards and yet still walked out of the stadium as if they had just invented the sport of football. Meanwhile, Cleveland had more yards, more weapons, and more opportunities, and still managed to play as if someone had surreptitiously swapped out their playbook for a set of cryptic IKEA instructions. And while the fans were still desperately trying to comprehend how the Jets had managed to win a game with only 42 passing yards, yes, you read that correctly, 42, the number of yards that toddlers typically accumulate while playing Madden on rookie mode, the whispers began to creep through the very walls of the building. Except they were not really whispers. They were more like someone had hooked up the rumor mill to a high-powered megaphone and left it pointed directly at Stefanski's office. Apparently, an ex-Brown CEO, someone with actual tangible pull and enough free time to make chaos a full-time hobby, had decided that he had finally seen enough of the predictable checkdowns, enough of the panic-induced sacks, enough of the tired old "we didn't execute" TED Talks, and enough of watching Myles Garrett literally put someone 6 feet under, only for the offense to respond with a deflating punt. This mystery ex-CEO allegedly stormed into a series of conversations, meetings, group chats, and probably even a few lunchrooms, and made one singular, unwavering demand: bench Dillon Gabriel, start Shedeur, not think about it, not consider the options, not evaluate the tape. No, he reportedly walked in with the unyielding authority of a parent who has just come home early from a business trip and found their kid failing math. Replace him.
Kevin said after the game that he's sticking with you going forward. Not that he shouldn't, it's just that at 2-7 sometimes things change.
Yep.
But he's sticking with you. How do you feel about the opportunity to build on, what you did today and move forward?
Yeah, when things aren't going well, there's always going to be change. That's part of it, because if you keep doing the same thing and don't change anything, then it's insanity. But I feel like at times there's things that went well and we sustained and executed, and then in certain moments.
Now, you would naturally think that Stefanski would at least make a token effort to hold his quarterback accountable. Something along the lines of, yeah, maybe 6 sacks is a bit too many, or perhaps completing only half of your passes is not ideal, or even losing to a team with the offensive firepower of a retired lawnmower is in fact a problem. But instead, he confidently marched into the press conference, admitting that he had not even bothered to watch the film, and proudly declared that Dillon would remain the starter after the bye week. A truly bold strategy, Kevin. Meanwhile, Myles Garrett is on the sideline, looking like a man who is seriously reconsidering his entire life. 5 sacks and they still somehow manage to lose. It is the kind of existential crisis that makes a defensive superstar begin to question the fundamental laws of physics, destiny, and, most importantly, offensive competence all at once. And then comes the moment. The reporter, with the courage of 1,000 Spartans, asks Dillon if he ever wonders when the team will finally turn things over to Shedeur. The entire room freezes, as if the Wi-Fi has just gone out. Dillon blinks, he inhales deeply, and instead of declaring his dominance, or his confidence, or his fire, or anything that even remotely resembles leadership, he simply delivers the spiritually defeated line that every single coach absolutely hates to hear: all I can do is control what I can control. The translation: yeah man, I know what's about to happen. Please don't make me say it out loud.
Dillon Gabriel, and I'm sorry, Dillon, you cannot play NFL football. This is like the AI Atlas. We've never seen it before. And after the game, for the Browns to just say, not even arbitrarily, they're saying it like it's the mantra of the team that Dillon Gabriel's playing again next week. Such a great exercise in incompetence that we should study this in some type of anthropology class at the highest level of educational institution in this country.
That right there is the unmistakable sound of someone who has already packed up half of their belongings in their locker, just in case. But that was merely the appetizer. The real, unadulterated chaos lives and breathes behind closed doors. Picture a former Browns CEO, someone who is still powerful enough to rattle the entire building, but is no longer obligated to follow any of the standard HR guidelines, sitting across from the team's ownership with a meticulously prepared PowerPoint presentation, boldly labeled, "Why Dillon Gabriel must be politely escorted off the field immediately." This ex-CEO is allegedly pulling up a series of Colorado highlights, rewinding throws in slow motion, circling reads with a laser pointer, and pointing out intangible traits like pocket presence and the clutch gene, all while Dillon's own tape looks like a deleted scene from a poorly written sitcom. This is about ticket sales, it is about merchandise, it is about buzz, it is about headlines, and it is about excitement. It is about everything that the city of Cleveland has not had on a consistent basis since the city itself practically invented unemployment jokes. Shedeur's name alone sells out entire stadiums. Dillon's name, on the other hand, currently sells a pervasive sense of concern. Imagine trying to hype up season ticket sales with a slogan like, "Come witness the magic of 167 passing yards and 6 sacks." Meanwhile, Shedeur brings in fans, he brings in sponsors, he brings in hype videos, and he brings in people who only watch Colorado games so that they can tweet excessively about him. Cleveland could use that kind of energy. Cleveland could use that kind of electricity. Cleveland could use anything other than a pervasive sense of sadness. Back at the press conference, Dillon is asked about the experience of getting sacked 6 times, and his answer is, in essence, "Yeah, I don't want to take those." Truly groundbreaking analysis, a revolutionary insight.
Well, day. Did anybody hear in that word salad of bullshit one thing that he can point out that Dillon Gabriel has improved upon or is doing well? Nope, I didn't hear it either. It's not there. He had nothing. He didn't have an answer. It speaks volumes that you can't point out one single thing that your rookie quarterback, that you handpicked, that you designated for first team reps and opportunities from day one of minicamp after he was drafted. All this time, 5 starts in the NFL, most starts ever in college football.
That is the kind of profound statement that has the power to change the sport forever. Yes, Dillon, no one actually wants to take 6 sacks. No quarterback in the history of the game has ever woken up on a Sunday morning thinking to themselves, "Today feels like a particularly good day to be repeatedly and violently body slammed." The problem is that true franchise quarterbacks do not simply not want to take sacks. They actively avoid them. They navigate the pocket, they step up, they escape, they improvise. They do literally anything other than stand completely still while imminent danger approaches at the approximate speed of disappointment. Shedeur, on the other hand, has spent entire seasons expertly dodging defenders as if he is in a paid partnership with chaos itself. Pressure. At Colorado, the man was practically playing behind a rotating cast of construction cones, and he still managed to launch absolute dimes like a malfunctioning t-shirt cannon. Saying things like, "You don't want to plant a seed and rip it up before it grows," is exactly what you say when you are desperately pleading with the organization to please, please, please not replace you with someone who has highlight reels that start trending on social media every single time he sneezes. Let's be perfectly clear, Cleveland did not draft Dillon Gabriel to be their next franchise superstar. He was supposed to be a bridge quarterback, a stable guy, a placeholder who could simply keep the ship afloat. But instead of keeping the ship afloat, he is actively drilling holes in the bottom of it while the Jets' rowboat glides past them, waving politely. The ex-CEO is not wrong. He sees what everyone else sees. Shedeur possesses the leadership, the charisma, and the clutch ability to completely change the entire direction of this franchise.
In my lifetime, I have never seen an incompetent coach, an incompetent quarterback united at the hip with no end in sight. And I want to be clear, I'm saying this without mentioning the name Shedeur Sanders, because it ain't got nothing to do with him. He doesn't even have to be on this roster for this to be one of the dumbest decisions in the history of the NFL.
Meanwhile, Dillon looks like someone who is desperately trying to remember if he turned off the stove. Shedeur brings something else to the table too, a palpable fearlessness. When things get tough, he does not crumble, he embraces it. He practically swears at the pressure for not being strong enough. You can actually see him getting energized when defenders are actively trying to murder him. He thrives in the very situations where Dillon gently dissolves. Dillon's press conference did not scream, "Starter." It screamed, "Accountant explaining a math error." The man delivered more generic, corporate-approved phrases in a span of 10 minutes than most CEOs do in an entire quarterly earnings call. "We'll execute better. We'll keep working." Momentum and rhythm. control what I can. He would glare at the microphone as if it owed him money and then explain, with unflinching detail, exactly where things went wrong, who needed to step up, and why he was about to fix everything, personally. That is the fundamental difference. Players are not stupid. They know when the quarterback is holding them back. Myles Garrett nearly broke a franchise record and yet still had to walk off the field looking like someone had just stolen his wallet. Do you honestly think he is excited to keep losing games because the offense cannot fire a single solitary shot when it actually counts? The defense is out there working overtime while the offense is busy collecting participation ribbons.
Hi, this is Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com after the Browns' 27-20 loss to the New York Jets, who had only one victory coming into this game, that being against the Cincinnati Bengals before their bye week. It's really quite shocking that they came in here and lost to this football team that basically conducted a fire sale during their bye week, trading away their two best defensive players. The opportunity was there to come in here for the Cleveland Browns to seize the moment and win this football game, but they gave up two kick returns for touchdowns.
The ownership group has to be watching this complete and utter meltdown with a potent mixture of both horror and regret, and the phone calls that were reportedly happening in the immediate aftermath of the Jets game. They are completely believable. That single loss was a definitive turning point, a spiritual awakening of sorts. It was the kind of humiliating defeat that forces tough, uncomfortable conversations and emergency late-night meetings. When you lose to a team that can barely even produce a respectable number of passing yards, something is deeply and fundamentally wrong. That is precisely why the ex-CEO is not being ignored. Not this time. He is pushing logic, he is pushing performance, he is pushing numbers, and he is pushing the tape. He is presenting hard, irrefutable evidence that the Cleveland Browns are wasting precious time, patiently waiting for Dillon to magically morph into someone he simply is not. Stefanski, meanwhile, is in a corner. If he benches Dillon now, he is effectively admitting that he completely misread the situation. He is admitting that he misjudged the available talent. He is admitting that his quarterback evaluation process more closely resembles a game of darts than it does a science, which brings everything, inevitably, back to Shedeur. The entire argument boils down to this simple yet profound dichotomy. Shedeur consistently does more with less, while Dillon consistently does less with more. Imagine Shedeur in that Jets game. He does not take 6 sacks. He does not look confused. He does not panic. He delivers. He improvises. He elevates every single person around him. In that scenario, Cleveland wins by 3 touchdowns, and the city throws a parade. Instead, Cleveland was forced to watch as Dillon somehow managed to manufacture a defensive masterclass into a soul-crushing loss. That is not an easy thing to do. It is impressive in a truly tragic kind of way. And as the ex-CEO reportedly said, champions don't settle for quarterbacks who can't beat the Jets. It is brutal. It is accurate. The next few weeks will determine everything.
He would have been played Shedeur. Brian Daboll was like, you know what? I might lose my job. Here, Jackson Dart. Like, if you think you're gonna lose your job, you do move off of the Cats. So Shedeur Sanders is Kevin Stefanski's ace in the hole. The reason Stefanski's not playing Shedeur in my mind is because his job is safe. James, I look at it like this. Jimmy Haslam, Kevin Stefanski, they're on one accord. Andrew Berry, general manager, he views it differently. I think Andrew Berry, the general manager, he wants Shedeur. That's why he drafted.
Either Cleveland finally admits the obvious and makes the bold, necessary move, or they continue to ride the Dillon train straight into a future filled with more losses, more frustration, and more tedious press conferences, full of passive acceptance and confusing agricultural metaphors. The fans deserve better. The players deserve better. The entire organization deserves better. And Shedeur, he just might be that better. He could be the spark, the fundamental shift, the compelling storyline that changes absolutely everything. Because one thing is certain, Dillon Gabriel is not the long-term answer. He is barely even the short-term answer. And unless Stefanski wants the next billboard in town to be his own farewell tribute, he might want to start listening to that powerful voice that is now echoing through the entire building. A voice that belongs to a former CEO who has just kicked open the door, pointed directly at the depth chart, and said the one thing that everyone else was too nervous to say out loud: start Shedeur. And here is the part that nobody in Cleveland wants to say out loud, but that everyone is whispering anyway. The longer they wait to make this move, the harder the eventual eventual crash is going to be, because if Dillon goes out there after the bye week and delivers yet another episode of quarterbacking for people who don't like winning, the stadium might actually erupt in a unified chorus of boos. Not the scattered, half-hearted boo, not the polite, almost apologetic boo, the full volume, surround sound, hometown disappointment boo, the kind of boo that shakes foundations and completely erases confidence.
The kid should have never been a top 100 draft pick. Like, we can start there. He should have never been a 100 draft pick. There is nothing about his physical makeup, his college tape, anything that warrants being a top 100 draft pick. They did it. They made the decision.
Time I go on the internet, all I see is a bunch of dudes sitting around going, why are you not playing Shedeur, and why are you about it? Like they're playing the soundbite. He won't even say his name. He won't even say his name. What is that?
And what happens then? Stefanski walks into the press conference, looking like he just read his own obituary.
And what happens then? Stefanski inevitably walks into the subsequent press conference, looking for all the world like a man who has just read his own obituary. The locker room fractures even further. More veterans mentally and emotionally check out. The young players begin to openly question the leadership. Meanwhile, Shedeur is sitting there on the sideline, probably wearing sunglasses and minding his own business, knowing with absolute certainty what is coming next. He does not have to say a single word. He does not have to campaign. He does not have to lobby. All he has to do is exist, and the immense pressure naturally, inexorably, shifts in his direction. The fans feel it more than anyone. That is precisely why this is so much bigger than one game, or one decision, or one uncomfortable press conference. This is about identity. It is about direction, and it is about whether the city of Cleveland wants to keep pretending that everything is perfectly fine, or if they will finally admit that the answer might be standing right there, patiently waiting for a chance to take the wheel, because eventually someone inside that building is going to snap and say it plainly. Why are we wasting time? Why are we pretending? Why won't we just give Shedeur the ball? And once that question finally leaves someone's mouth, there is absolutely no going back.